Imagine stepping inside a sealed tomb and looking up to see the universe. Many tomb ceilings were painted with golden stars on deep blue backgrounds, crafted to mirror the night sky. Egyptians believed the heavens were the domain of gods like Nut and Osiris, and decorating tombs with stars symbolically guided souls into eternity. Writing was serious business in ancient Egypt. Scribes used reed pens dipped in black and red ink. Black was for main text, red was for headings, warnings, and important annotations. The two-ink system lives on today in textbooks, edits, and emphasized notes. They wrote on papyrus scrolls that could reach over 40 meters long. Some temples doubled as hospitals, universities, and archives. Entire walls were filled with medical knowledge. Temples like Edfu and Dendera stored remedies, surgery notes, broken bone treatments, spiritual healing rituals, and even anatomical diagrams. Some walls held formulas for ointments, fever cures, and childbirth instructions. Footwear was simple and practical. Ancient Egyptian sandals were woven from papyrus reeds or palm fiber. These materials were lightweight, breathable, and easy to replace. Most sandals were open-toed to stay cool in desert heat. Nobility sometimes added leather straps or beaded decorations, but everyday citizens wore plant fiber soles. Long before toothpaste, Egyptians used herbs for hygiene. They believed chewing mint-like plants, parsley, coriander, or aromatic herbs freshened breath. Some mixes included cinnamon or incense resins. Clean breath wasn't vanity, it was spiritual. Many gods were honored with sweet smells, so freshness was part of divine respect. Egypt celebrated with flair. The Horus festivals included staged battles reenacting his victory over Set. Crowds gathered as soldiers clashed their shields, chariots charged, and priests narrated the myth. These mock battles weren't chaos. They were symbolic celebrations of protection, kingship, triumph, and divine order. Pharaohs weren't just rulers, they were logistics masters. They launched long desert expeditions to the Sinai for turquoise and Nubia for gold. These journeys could last weeks, crossing harsh terrain, carrying water, tools, and guards. Turquoise was prized for jewelry, statues, and royal inlays, symbolizing protection and beauty. Obelisks weren't just monuments, they were cosmic bridges. Egyptians believed they connected the heavens, the gods, and the land. Made from single pieces of granite, they pointed upward like petrified sun rays. Placed at temple entrances, they invited divine energy to descend and bless the kingdom. Egyptian astronomers studied stars not for curiosity, but survival. They mapped constellations to predict Nile flooding cycles and plan planting seasons. Rising stars like Sirius signaled agricultural timing. Star charts helped farmers know when to sow, harvest, and prepare for inundation. Ancient graffiti left behind in worker villages and stone blocks reveals their human side. Messages scratched onto walls show workers complaining about supervisors, long days, ration shortages, lazy co-workers, and unfair treatment. Egypt built wonders, but the builders definitely had opinions. Ancient Egyptians had a unique view of illness. They believed many diseases were caused by invisible evil spirits or angry supernatural forces. Instead of separating religion and medicine, they combined them. Priests and healers would chant spells, recite incantations, and call upon gods like Sekhmet or Bes for protection. One famous medical papyrus even includes formulas that are part remedy, part ritual. To them, healing the body meant healing the spirit too. Ostrich feathers were more than decoration. They were a symbol of status, beauty, and coolness in the intense Egyptian heat. They were used in handheld fans, ceremonial headdresses, and even wigs. These feathered fans appear in tomb art, often shown being waved over high officials or pharaohs. The feather's soft movement also carried symbolic meaning, representing air, life, and divine presence. Long before modern sports, Egyptians invented their own competitive games. Archaeological evidence shows they played a game similar to bowling using rounded stone balls. Lanes were sometimes smoothed on the ground, and players aimed the heavy balls toward targets or markers. The size and weight varied, making the game both skillful and physically demanding. It was social, strategic, and loud. Daily life had its own form of sporting challenge. Stone balls, pins, and a primitive alley suggest a bowling-like pastime, but the Egyptians also had a bowling cousin to 10-pin. Instead of wooden balls, they used carved stones. Some alleys were designed indoors to avoid sun exposure, showing that even in ancient times, comfort during play mattered. Egyptians inked their bodies for more than style. Tattoos were believed to carry spiritual protection and possibly healing power. Many markings appear on women, dancers, and priestesses. Some tattoos symbolized gods or animals, acting like amulets on the skin. There is also evidence that tattoos may have been placed near areas of pain or illness, hinting at a medical or therapeutic purpose combined with magic. The Egyptians feared tooth pain, partly because their bread contained sand and grit from grinding stones, which damaged enamel. Yet they were advanced in treatment. Studies of mummies show some had dental work. They didn't have sugar like today, but their dentistry was shockingly innovative for its time. Some mummies were discovered with hardened resin inside cavities, one of the earliest known examples of dental fillings. Resin acted as both a sealer and a pain reducer, mixed from tree sap, beeswax, and antibacterial ingredients. This shows that Egyptian medicine wasn't all spells. They understood infection control, even without microscopes. Surgery and dentistry required tools, and ancient Egypt relied heavily on copper. Copper instruments were used for operations, dental drilling, and even basic medical cutting. Because copper naturally resists bacteria, these tools likely reduced infection risk. This means some of their success came not from chance, but material science they didn't fully need to explain to benefit from. Sobek, the crocodile god, was worshipped in cities like Crocodilopolis and Kom Ombo. What made this worship fascinating was how alive it was, literally. Some temples kept real crocodiles in sacred pools, fed and cared for as earthly versions of Sobek himself. When these crocodiles died, they were mummified with the same honor as nobility. People would visit to seek fertility, strength, or divine favor. Egyptians prepared the dead for the next world like they were packing for eternity. Tombs contained bread, beer, meat, oils, wine, weapons, jewelry, games, and magical amulets. Pharaohs especially were buried with defensive items, including blades, bows, and ceremonial weaponry to guard them beyond death. Even common citizens included food offerings, believing the afterlife mirrored their homeland and that hunger still needed solving there. Music wasn't just entertainment in ancient Egypt, it was sacred. Temple rituals, processions, and celebrations were filled with rhythmic chants, drums, and flutes designed to honor the gods. Egyptians believed music had the power to calm deities, heal the sick, and even guide souls into the afterlife. Among their favorite instruments were beautifully carved harps and lutes. Some harps were over a meter tall and decorated with ivory or gold. Musicians played them at banquets, religious festivals, and royal gatherings, giving Egypt a soundscape that was elegant and enchanting. While large ships carried cargo along the Nile, everyday Egyptians often used small boats made of papyrus. These lightweight vessels were perfect for fishing, river crossings, or quick trips between farmlands. They were so buoyant that even when damaged, they rarely sank. The arrival of the Hyksos introduced something that changed Egyptian warfare forever: the chariot. Fast, maneuverable, and deadly, chariots became elite military tools. Pharaohs like Thutmose III mastered chariot warfare, giving Egypt an edge over rival kingdoms. Forget chickens. Egyptians preferred geese and ducks, which they domesticated for meat, eggs, and offerings. Tomb paintings frequently show families feeding flocks, proving that waterfowl farming was an everyday part of life. Beauty mattered. Some tomb scenes show women using polished bronze mirrors, crafted with elegant handles shaped like flowers, deities, or animals. These mirrors weren't just tools. They were luxury items symbolizing purity and charm. The goddess Ma'at represented truth, justice, balance, and cosmic order. Pharaohs claimed they lived by Ma'at, meaning they kept harmony in society and maintained the balance between gods, nature, and humanity. Being a soldier in Egypt wasn't just about duty, it could build your future. Some warriors received plots of land as payment for service, giving them wealth, status, and a legacy to pass to their children. Temples weren't just spiritual centers, they were libraries of knowledge. Sacred texts, medical treatises, astronomical charts, myths, and administrative records were all stored in special rooms known as houses of life. Priests were the librarians of ancient wisdom. And finally, scent. Egyptians loved perfumes and scented oils, using them in ceremonies, daily grooming, and even medicine. Some fragrances were so valuable that they were kept in ornate alabaster jars and traded like treasure across the Mediterranean.
In Egyptian art, few symbols appear as often as the lotus flower. This elegant bloom opened each morning and closed at night, inspiring the Egyptians to see it as a symbol of rebirth, creation, and the cycle of life. It wasn't just decorative. This flower captured their entire spiritual worldview. Walk through the ruins of ancient temples and you'll notice something striking. Massive stone columns shaped like papyrus stalks and lotus buds. These weren't random designs. They were meant to recreate the sacred marshes of creation, turning every temple into a symbolic universe. In the royal palaces, individuals of short stature held special roles. They served as entertainers, dancers, jewelers, and highly trusted attendants. Egyptian texts show they were respected and valued, often achieving statuses far beyond ordinary citizens. Several mummies have been discovered with golden tongues placed in their mouths. This practice was believed to ensure the deceased could speak in the afterlife, especially to the gods who judged them. To the Egyptians, dreams weren't random. They were messages, warnings, predictions, or guidance from gods and spirits. Dream interpretation manuals even existed, listing possible visions and their meanings. During mummification, embalmers tucked amulets within the linen wrappings. Each one, whether an eye of Horus, scarab, or heart scarab, served a protective purpose, ensuring the deceased could survive trials in the next world. How did workers move the massive stones used in pyramids and temples? Evidence shows they dragged them on wooden sledges and poured water onto the sand. This reduced friction dramatically, an ingenious technique centuries ahead of its time. The Egyptians believed that the afterlife wasn't some distant heaven. It was Egypt itself, perfected and eternal. A land with no sickness, no hunger, and no hardship, where the Nile flowed forever. King Tutankhamun's tomb contained 130 walking sticks of various materials and designs. Some historians believe they were ceremonial, while others think they reflect a physical condition that made walking difficult for the young king. Despite the grandeur around them, Egyptian children played with simple toys, dolls made of clay, wood, or cloth. Some even had movable limbs, showing that creativity existed at every level of society. During mummification, the Egyptians carefully removed internal organs to preserve the body. These organs were placed in beautifully decorated containers called canopic jars, each protected by one of the 4 sons of Horus. The jars ensured the body would remain whole in the afterlife. To prepare a mummy for eternity, priests performed the opening of the mouth ceremony, a ritual meant to restore the senses of the deceased, allowing them to eat, speak, and breathe once again in the afterlife. Egyptian soldiers often shaved their heads, not just for comfort in the heat, but to prevent lice infestations during long military campaigns. An early example of practical hygiene in warfare. Some tombs and pyramids were built with air shafts perfectly aligned to stars like Orion's belt, believed to help guide the pharaoh's soul to the heavens after death. The Egyptians were pioneers in early dentistry. Archaeologists have found evidence of drilled teeth, fillings made from resin and crushed barley, and even dental prosthetics, showing how advanced their medical knowledge truly was. Far from being slaves, pyramid builders were skilled laborers. Some even left graffiti bragging about their work, with team names like the Drunkards of Menkaure proudly scrawled on the stones. Thoth, depicted as an ibis-headed god, was believed to have invented writing, mathematics, and record-keeping, gifts that helped preserve Egyptian knowledge for millennia. While beer was the drink of the common people, the wealthy enjoyed wine made from pomegranates, figs, and dates. These fruity wines were often offered to gods and served at banquets. Every morning, temple priests performed rituals to awaken statues of the gods, bathing, dressing, and feeding them as if they were living beings, maintaining Egypt's sacred harmony. The color blue symbolized the life-giving Nile and the vast sky above. Egyptians used blue in jewelry, art, and temples to invoke fertility, creation, and divine power.
In ancient Egypt, not all taxes were paid in coins or grain. Sometimes honey, one of the most prized substances of the ancient world, was used as payment. It was so valuable that it symbolized wealth and purity. Egyptians used honey not only as a sweetener, but also as a medicine and a sacred offering to the gods. So when tax collectors came calling, a jar of honey could keep both the pharaoh and the spirits satisfied. Egyptians believed death was not the end, but the beginning of a new life in the afterworld. To ensure comfort in the next world, tombs were stocked with everything a person might need: furniture, clothing, food, wine, and even board games like Senet. These weren't just symbolic gifts, they were literal provisions for a journey beyond life itself. One of the most recognizable symbols from ancient Egypt is the Ankh, a cross with a loop at the top. It represented eternal life and divine protection. Gods were often depicted holding it, offering the breath of life to pharaohs and mortals alike. It wasn't just a religious emblem, the Ankh was also worn as jewelry to invoke health, strength, and longevity. The humble scarab beetle was deeply sacred in Egyptian culture. Inspired by the dung beetle rolling its ball of earth across the desert, Egyptians saw a symbol of the sun's daily journey across the sky. Scarab amulets were worn to protect against evil and ensure rebirth after death, a small but powerful charm of eternal renewal. Temples in ancient Egypt were not just places of worship. They were centers of economy and industry. Each temple owned vast lands, managed farms, operated workshops, and stored grain. Priests oversaw trade, collected offerings, and helped sustain local communities. In many ways, temples were the beating heart of Egyptian civilization, controlling wealth, labor, and resources. Lined along temple pathways and guarding sacred entrances, Sphinx statues were symbols of protection and strength. Usually depicted with a lion's body and a human head, they represented the power of the pharaoh and the watchful eyes of the gods. The Great Sphinx of Giza remains the most famous, a silent sentinel watching over Egypt's mysteries for millennia. Egypt's very existence depended on the Nile River. Each year, its predictable floods transformed dry soil into fertile farmland, allowing crops like wheat and barley to thrive. Without the Nile's rhythm, Egypt would have been a barren desert. The river wasn't just a water source, it was life itself, revered as a divine force. Egyptians gazed at the night sky and saw the Milky Way as a heavenly reflection of the Nile. They believed the souls of the dead traveled through this celestial river to reach the afterlife. This cosmic connection between earth and sky reveals how deeply spirituality and astronomy intertwined in their worldview. Cosmetics were essential in Egyptian daily life, for both men and women. Their iconic black eyeliner, made from galena, wasn't just a fashion statement. It protected eyes from the harsh desert sun and warded off infections. Makeup was both medicine and magic, a blend of beauty, health, and divine favor. Pharaohs wore more than one crown, each carried symbolic meaning. The white crown represented Upper Egypt, the red crown symbolized Lower Egypt, and when unified, the double crown stood for the power over both lands. There were also ceremonial crowns for war, rituals, and divine communion, each reinforcing the ruler's godlike authority. Ancient Egyptians were among the first people in history to keep written tax records. Scribes tracked grain, livestock, and goods owed to the government, using hieroglyphs on papyrus scrolls. Taxes kept temples running, armies marching, and pyramids rising, making scribes some of the most important people in Egypt. Beyond humans, millions of animals were mummified in Egypt: cats, ibises, crocodiles, even bulls. Many were sacred offerings to the gods, sold by temple priests to worshippers. Archaeologists have uncovered entire animal cemeteries, showing just how massive this spiritual industry became. Beer flowed like water in ancient Egypt. It was a staple drink made from barley and dates, thick and nutritious enough to be considered food. Workers, priests, and pharaohs all drank it, even children. It wasn't just a beverage, it was part of daily survival. To the Egyptians, gold was more than wealth. It was divine. They believed it represented the eternal flesh of the gods and used it in everything from jewelry to funerary masks. Pharaohs like Tutankhamun were buried in layers of gleaming gold, linking them forever to the realm of the divine. Temples often featured sacred lakes, man-made bodies of water used for religious purification. Priests bathed daily before entering the holy spaces, cleansing both body and spirit. Some of these lakes, like the one at Karnak, still glisten under the Egyptian sun today. Ancient Egyptians believed the heart was the seat of thought, emotion, and the soul, not the brain. During mummification, they removed the brain but kept the heart safe inside the body. In the afterlife, the heart was weighed against the feather of truth to determine one's fate. Ancient Egypt had specialists for nearly every part of the body, including early dentists. Papyrus scrolls describe dental treatments for toothaches and infections, often using honey and herbs. While some cures were magical, many show a surprising understanding of medical science. Beauty wasn't just for women. Both men and women in Egypt wore makeup, not just for looks, but for protection from the sun and infections. They polished copper and bronze to make mirrors and stored their cosmetics in ornate jars of alabaster and ivory. Ostrich eggs were prized for their beauty and utility. Egyptians used them as water containers, decorated them with colorful patterns, and offered them to the gods. Fragments of these eggs have been found in tombs, still shining after thousands of years. It may sound shocking, but ancient Egyptians used crocodile dung mixed with honey as an early form of birth control. They believed it formed a protective barrier, an idea creative, if not exactly effective.
Hippos might seem cute today, but to the ancient Egyptians, they were dangerous and divine. These massive animals were linked to chaos and destruction, yet were also revered as sacred creatures. Pharaohs would sometimes hunt hippos as a public display of power, proving they could protect their people from this ferocious river threat. The Great Pyramid of Giza wasn't just a wonder. It was the tallest human-made structure on Earth for over 3,800 years. Imagine a building so impressive that nothing on the planet topped it until the Middle Ages. It stood as a shining symbol of Egyptian engineering brilliance. Purity was everything for Egyptian priests. To remain ritually clean, they plucked every single hair on their bodies, even eyebrows and eyelashes, and bathed multiple times a day. This extreme level of grooming was seen as a sacred duty. Medicine in ancient Egypt was shockingly advanced. Archaeologists discovered the world's oldest known prosthetic body part, a wooden toe carefully crafted to help its owner walk naturally. This shows Egyptians valued both function and appearance, even thousands of years ago. Egyptian temples were designed to impress and mystify. Some even had secret doors and hidden mechanisms that priests used to create dramatic rituals. Imagine fire appearing from nowhere or statues that seemed to move. It must have left worshippers in awe. For a brief moment in history, Egypt turned its back on its many gods. Pharaoh Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti led a religious revolution, worshipping only one deity, the sun disk Aten. This bold experiment ended shortly after Akhenaten's death, but remains one of the most fascinating chapters in Egyptian history. Egyptians believed they'd need transportation in the afterlife. So many ships were dismantled, buried, and ready to be reassembled beyond the grave. Some of these ships were massive, proving just how seriously they took their journey into eternity. Forget gold. The workers who built the pyramids were paid in bread, beer, and onions. This was a practical payment system giving laborers food and drink to fuel their backbreaking work. Beer was safer than water, and onions were believed to boost strength. Egyptians were brilliant astronomers and timekeepers. Their calendar had 360 days divided into 12 months, with 5 bonus days added at the end of the year. These extra days were dedicated to feasting and celebrating the gods, basically the ancient version of a long weekend. Mummification wasn't quick. It could take up to 70 days. The process involved removing organs, drying the body with natron salts, and wrapping it in linen. Every step was carefully done to ensure the person was preserved for eternity.
Cleopatra, the last active ruler of Egypt, lived closer in time to the invention of the iPhone than to the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. The pyramid was built around 2560 BCE, while Cleopatra reigned in the 1st century BCE, over 2,000 years later. Mind-blowing, right? Today, the Great Pyramid looks sandy and weathered, but in its prime, it was covered in polished white limestone. This made it gleam in the sun and reflect light for miles, like a giant beacon in the desert. Pharaoh Pepi II was said to hate flies so much that he smeared honey on his servants to lure them away from him. Talk about a royal solution to an annoying problem. Bad breath? No problem. Ancient Egyptians invented one of the earliest breath mints. They mixed cinnamon, frankincense, and honey into little pellets to keep their breath fresh. Perfect for impressing the gods or your date. Some pharaohs married their siblings to keep the royal bloodline pure. While this may sound shocking today, it was seen as a divine duty. After all, the gods themselves were believed to marry within their own family. Egyptians worshipped cats, seeing them as protectors of homes and sacred animals of the goddess Bastet. Killing a cat, even by accident, was punishable by death, showing just how deeply they revered these feline companions. The word pharaoh didn't always mean king. It originally meant great house, referring to the royal palace. Over time, it became a title for the ruler himself. Ramses II wasn't just a great pharaoh, he was a great father. He reportedly had over 100 children, making him one of history's most prolific dads. Life as a pharaoh was all about luxury. Tomb paintings show servants fanning rulers with enormous ostrich feather fans to keep them cool and comfortable during the sweltering heat. Here's a strange one. When a family cat died, Egyptians shaved off their eyebrows as a sign of mourning. The grief lasted until their brows grew back. In ancient Egypt, some masters were buried with their servants so they could continue serving them in the afterlife. Thankfully, this grim practice became less common over time and was replaced by shabti figurines, small servant statues meant to magically do the work instead. Believe it or not, the Egyptians had a pregnancy test over 3,000 years ago. Women would urinate on barley or wheat seeds. If the seeds sprouted, it meant pregnancy. Modern science has shown this actually works most of the time. Ancient Egyptians adored their pets. Dogs and cats were common, but some families had baboons, gazelles, and even trained monkeys to fetch fruit or entertain guests. These animals were often mummified and buried with their owners. Board games were popular in ancient Egypt, and one of the most famous was Senet. Played with a grid board, and throw sticks. It was a mix of fun and spirituality. Some even believed winning meant safe passage to the afterlife. Most Egyptians lived in simple mud brick houses. These homes kept cool during scorching days and warm at night. But they didn't last forever. Many ancient houses have crumbled away, leaving only foundations for archaeologists to study. One of Egypt's greatest inventions was papyrus, the world's first form of paper. Made from reeds along the Nile, papyrus allowed Egyptians to record history, write letters, and preserve sacred texts thousands of years before modern paper existed. The Tarkan dress is over 5,000 years old, making it the oldest known woven garment in existence. This linen dress shows that fashion mattered even in ancient times, proving style never goes out of date. Ancient Egyptians didn't take tomb robbing lightly. Some tombs were inscribed with curses meant to scare away thieves. These warnings threatened bad luck, disease, or even death for anyone who disturbed the dead. Unlike many ancient societies, Egyptian women could own property, run businesses, and even take legal action in court. Some even became pharaohs, like the famous Hatshepsut, showing that women held real power in Egyptian society. Egyptian doctors were skilled and specialized, some focused only on treating specific body parts. Evidence shows they even performed early brain surgeries, making them pioneers in medicine thousands of years before modern hospitals. The scarab beetle was one of ancient Egypt's most important symbols. These little creatures represented rebirth and transformation. Egyptians placed scarab amulets in tombs, believing they helped the dead journey safely into the afterlife. Some scarabs were even inscribed with magical spells for protection. The afterlife wasn't all golden fields and paradise. Duat, the Egyptian underworld, was filled with dangerous creatures, fire pits, and terrifying demons. Souls had to pass gruesome challenges before reaching eternal peace. If they failed, they faced total destruction by the dreaded devourer of souls. Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess, was both feared and revered. She was the goddess of war and disease, said to breathe fire and unleash plagues on her enemies. Pharaohs prayed to her for victory, but when she was angry, she could devastate entire cities with sickness and destruction. Egyptians believed that a person's soul had two parts, the Ba and the Ka. The Ba was a person's personality, while the Ka was their life force. After death, the Ba could travel between the world of the living and the dead, but the Ka needed offerings and rituals to survive in the afterlife. The first mummies weren't created on purpose. In early Egypt, bodies buried in the desert were naturally preserved by the hot, dry sand. When Egyptians realized this, they developed intentional mummification, using oils, resins, and linen wrappings to perfect the process. Medicine in ancient Egypt wasn't just science, it was magic. Heka, the god of magic, was believed to give healing powers to priests and doctors. Many medical treatments included spells and incantations, blending spirituality and science into one. Imagine a statue of a god speaking. In Egyptian temples, priests would whisper into statues, pretending the gods were answering worshippers' prayers. This created a direct link between the gods and the people, making temples powerful centers of spiritual guidance. The deadly Nile crocodile was sacred in ancient Egypt. It was associated with Sobek, the god of strength and protection. Some temples even kept live crocodiles as sacred animals, believing they carried Sobek's spirit. But in the wild, they were still terrifying predators. Egyptians loved cats, and no goddess was more beloved than Bastet. She was the protector of home, family, and fertility, often shown as a gentle cat or fierce lioness. Killing a cat, even by accident, was considered a serious crime. Many Egyptian tombs contained false doors, carved into stone walls. These weren't mistakes. They were meant to let spirits pass between the living and the dead. Families placed food and offerings by these doors, believing their ancestors' spirits would come through and accept them. The ancient Egyptians didn't just worship a handful of gods. They believed in over 2,000 deities. Some gods were well known, like Ra, Osiris, and Anubis, while others were more obscure. Each god had a specific role, from creation to protection, love, war, and even writing. Meet Anubis, the god of mummification and the afterlife. With his jackal head, he guided souls into the next world and oversaw the embalming process. Egyptians believed Anubis protected the dead from evil spirits, and that's why his image appears in so many tombs. One of Egypt's most dramatic legends is the murder of Osiris, god of the afterlife. His jealous brother Set tricked and killed him, cutting his body into pieces. But thanks to his wife Isis, Osiris was magically revived and became ruler of the underworld, while their son Horus avenged him. Ancient Egyptians believed that after death, your heart was weighed against a feather in the Hall of Judgment. This feather belonged to Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. If your heart was lighter than the feather, you could enter paradise, but if it was heavy with sin, it was devoured by a terrifying beast. Without Ma'at, they believed the world would fall into chaos. The Eye of Horus is one of Egypt's most famous symbols, representing protection, healing, and power. Egyptians wore it as an amulet, believing it could guard them against evil and illness. Even today, you can still find the Eye of Horus in jewelry and artwork around the world. Every night, the mighty sun god Ra was believed to travel through the underworld, battling demons and the chaos serpent Apophis. If Ra won, the sun would rise again. But if he lost, total darkness and destruction. Thankfully, Ra always triumphed, or so they hoped. Talk about dedication. Egyptian priests had to shave their heads, bodies, and even eyebrows to stay pure before entering temples. They bathed several times a day and followed strict diets to remain worthy of serving the gods. The Egyptians weren't just great builders, they were astronomical geniuses. The temple of Abu Simbel was built so that, twice a year, the sun would perfectly illuminate statues of the gods inside. These solar alignments weren't accidents, they were proof of Egypt's deep connection to the cosmos. To navigate the afterlife, Egyptians believed the dead needed a guidebook, literally. The Book of the Dead contained spells and instructions to help souls avoid demons, pass trials, and reach paradise. Some even had spells to transform into animals or escape traps in the underworld. The Egyptian heat was no joke. That's why ancient Egyptians wore light, breathable linen clothing made from flax plants. It kept them cool in the scorching desert sun and was considered clean and pure, even sacred. Both men and women wore makeup, not just for beauty, but for protection. The black coal around their eyes helped guard against sun glare and infections. It was fashion with function. Ancient Egyptian children often ran around naked until their teens. Clothing was minimal for kids, which made sense in the hot climate. It wasn't weird, it was normal. For hygiene, many Egyptians shaved their heads and wore elaborate wigs. Lice was a problem, and wigs were not only practical, but also a sign of status and style. Beer was a staple drink, even for kids. Made from fermented bread, it was safe to drink, full of calories, and part of daily meals for all social classes. Without sugar, honey was gold, literally and figuratively. Egyptians used it as a sweetener, a preservative, and even as medicine for cuts and infections. Sweet and smart, bread was the main food, but it came with a price. Sand and grit from stone mills often got into the dough. Egyptians ate it anyway, but over time, it wore down their teeth. Ouch! The oldest known love poem was written in ancient Egypt. It's emotional, romantic, and thousands of years old. Proof that love has always been a part of lives even years ago. Egypt had an early version of modern medicine. Doctors specialized in specific body parts, like eye doctors or dentists. Some treatments even combined magic and medicine. Instead of soft pillows, Egyptians used wooden headrests. It may seem uncomfortable today, but it helped keep cool and preserve elaborate hairstyles. Beauty sleep, ancient style.